Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is The Current Podcast. Israel continues its ground offensive in southern Gaza despite international condemnation. On Sunday, an Israeli airstrike hit a camp for displaced Palestinians in Rafah that ignited a deadly fire and killed dozens of people.
We heard a very loud sound and saw fire. The kids were screaming, and all the rooms surrounding us were made out of metal sheets. The sound was terrifying.
We set up our tents here, and it has been targeted. They killed our children and burned our women and elderly in the place they claimed was safe. This is our 7th time being displaced.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blamed the strike on a tragic mishap. Then on Tuesday, Gaza health authorities said the tank shells hit another cluster of tents in an area designated as a humanitarian zone, killing 21 people. The Israeli military is denying that it was responsible. Meanwhile, Canada is expanding the special visa program for Gazans, increasing the cap from 1,000 to 5,000. Ahmad Abualjedian was able to bring his wife and infant daughter to Canada last year, but he still has family in Gaza. Ahmed, hello.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm okay. How close was your family to the bombing in Rafah?
So my whole family started moving 2 days from which is that time the big tanks they came in that tank in that tenants. But my 3 days actually, and my sister just yesterday she left that area.
Mm.
It was around 50 to 100 meter away. That's all.
50 to 100 meters, so not very far at all.
No.
I mean, the details are really difficult to hear. But what has your sister told you about what she saw?
I just talked to her yesterday. It was. I just listened to her, and I wish in that time I did not listen to her, because what I heard, like I myself, I never can be believing this if I don't believe her. When she's saying is, we seeing the tenants like burned, we seeing the people burned, the women, the men, the children cut it in the ground. We seeing all that, and we just try to save ourselves. We can't save other people. When they just have to leave without anything, without mat, without blanket, without anything, like you either clothes they can't take with them, food no, just trying to save them children, just because it's not safe anymore. And if in Gazan culture or in Gazan rule, if you hear one thing coming, then just know that's telling you leave. That's how they communicate with us.
Where is she now?
In Khan Yunis.
And do you feel that she's safe now?
No, ever. So so no place in Gaza is safe, but the most places is dangerous now, north and south. But does that mean is anything else safe? No, because I had relative 1 week ago. They lost them daughter. She is 1 month. She dead, and the mom got burned in whole her body. Can you imagine how much pain she facing, especially with the health facility? There is nothing, almost nothing, honestly, like nothing there except like some bandages and some quick things just to rotate with, but anything else is nothing. And every border is closed. They can't get out to recover. Even if it will be open, that will be really high and heavy restriction for whoever need to be leave, especially the injured people.
What do you want the Canadian government to do?
So always Canadian government is starting doing something. Always, like with any from I came to Canada until now. Always I see Canada trying to do something, and which is very, very good, honestly. But we have to just like get, yes, it's very good news to get that special program extended, but I think like I did apply for my relative.
Mm-hmm.
I see nothing from January until now. I just was wondering how we extend that program, and we did not even match first month yet.
So you applied, but you've heard nothing back yet from the government?
Literally, yes.
Is it possible, even if you were to hear back, is it possible for your family members to get out of Gaza now?
For now, I don't think so. But for all Gazan, what's saying is let's do something until Rafah crossing open. Then whenever it's open, we will find ourselves out. That's how they hope for.
We've heard from family members, and we've spoken with them on the program, who have been raising money to try and get their families out of Gaza, working to try to figure out how, if they can't get out through the official government programs, to use unofficial government programs. What are you doing to try to lobby for help?
I had this, honestly. I have a GoFundMe campaign, and I still have it, to be honest. But it's not effective anymore. It was effective before the Rafah closure, last one. It was something called Hala program. It's a company tourism. They taken around, first of all, was taken $10,000 per person. And then they make it more cheaper, making us as a Gazan people a favor to make it in a $5,000.
It's still a lot of money.
Yeah, right. But like, if a lot or not, you have this option. If you have money, you will buy your life. If you don't have money, then you'll lose your life. No problem.
When you talk,
that's how they acting with us, unfortunately.
When you talk to your sister, what do you say to her about what you can or can't do?
Well, Matt, I just ask her a question. I told her, I am willing to be alive tomorrow morning in a radio. What do you want me to say? That's a question was for her, to be honest, because I told her that's all I can do for you now, because all I can say is spread your voice around, try to do for you something, and that's all. What she said is, we are dying every minute, million times. I took a minute just to understand the word, you know. I said, what do you mean? She said, like, we heard every minute a sound like nobody can hear it, nobody can. Matt, we do not talk about the disabilities there. Disabilities there now is the highest, for sure. Even the mentally disabilities or physically disabilities. Mentally, 100%. 100%. Nobody will be out of it. Nobody. But physically, which is cut it hand, cut it leg. I know some people is blind and they have no leg now. Blind and no leg, cannot move. That will be, I don't know how to. I wish I will. I hope never be in that situation. But yeah, all I can say, let's put hands together ourselves here and try to save as much as we can as people now, because the children there who is 5 to 10 years, 10 to 5 years, like those years, they are facing something like they are not living them life. They are not going to the schools. They are thinking, are we will be alive after this minute? Like, I will call them today. I don't know if they are alive or no.
Ahmed, good to talk to you.
I have no idea.
Thank you for talking to us. I wish you and your family the very best.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you.
I'll Abualjedian is a Palestinian. He's trying to get his family from Gaza, as you heard, to Canada. We reached him in Brantford, Ontario.
The images coming out of Rafah are horrific, heartbreaking. Our position has been clear on Rafah, and we've been saying it now for weeks. Palestinian civilians do not have any safe space to go. The killing of innocent civilians is completely unacceptable, and the decisions of the International Court of Justice are binding. The level of human suffering is catastrophic, and that's why, Mr. Speaker, we need an immediate ceasefire.
That's Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly in question period on Monday. Bob Rae is Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador, good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
Each time we hear of more civilians killed in Gaza, we hear calls and see tweets from Liberal ministers and MPs calling for a ceasefire. Does Canada have any real influence to actually make a ceasefire happen, do you think?
Well, together with others, I think we have some influence. I think the practical matter is that everyone is calling for a ceasefire now. I mean, the clear thing is that you cannot fight a war like the one that's being fought at the moment without an unacceptably high level of civilian loss of life. And as your guest just told us, the amount of injury and trauma is extraordinary. And what we can do is continue to raise, not just raise our voices, but also talk about how we can take the steps that are necessary to get to a ceasefire. Unfortunately, Hamas is continuing the fighting, and so is the State of Israel. So that's something we have to continue to work on. Both parties have to come to a conclusion that the level of civilian damage is just too high, and it's unacceptable.
If you think that it's unacceptable, I mean, what else can Canada do? Could Canada, you're an ambassador, this is an issue of international diplomacy. Should Canada expel Israel's ambassador, for example, to say, if you believe that this is unacceptable, this is a step that you could take to show that it's unacceptable?
No, I don't think that's the right step. I think you have to engage with the Israelis. I don't think expelling people does anything. I think it's a matter of really trying to continue to engage. And after the events of this last few days, which have been truly tragic and horrendous, I think that the pressure of not only opinion outside Israel, but frankly the pressure inside Israel. I think Canadians need to understand that Israeli opinion is alive. People are expressing themselves publicly in the streets. They're demonstrating, and there are many, many people in Israel who are fully aware of the consequences of the decisions that are being taken, and the terrible impact they're having on the population in Gaza, but also the impact it's having on Israel's reputation.
On Friday, the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in Rafah. Subsequently, there was that missile strike. Israeli tanks have also been seen in Rafah. Mélanie Joly said just a moment ago in that clip that the ruling from the International Court of Justice is binding. So if the ruling is binding, but Israel continues to act, where does that leave the rest of the world?
Well, if you actually read the decision, you'll see that what the court says is that Israel should cease all activities in pursuit of a genocide. And so we need to understand that Israel's interpretation of that is that they're not committing a genocide, and they are still entitled to defend themselves and to dealing with the party, Hamas, which led the attack on October the 7th, which led to 1,200 civilian casualties in Israel. But the point now is that the issue goes beyond this, because what is clear, and what your guest, I think, described to us in very clear terms, is that there is no safe place in Gaza, which is why Canada has said, as clearly as we possibly can, you can't fight a war this way without an unacceptably high level of civilian casualties. And not just casualties, but total destruction of people's housing, people's hospitals, and people's schools.
I guess so. In the face of that, what do you do? Because, I mean, Martin Griffiths has said that, the aid chief, that no place is safe in Gaza. The Secretary General has called for an immediate ceasefire again and again and again. There has been frustration from many people around the world. and more frustration, outrage. I mean, add whatever word you'd want to this. What do you do about that? I mean, there's a sense of frustration. People see this as a failure of international diplomacy, for example.
Well, of course it is. I mean, how else would you describe it? But not to make you feel any worse, but the fact is there are literally dozens of disputes around the world where civilians are being killed, where children are being maimed, from Myanmar right through many parts of Asia and Africa, and in many, many countries, we see an incredibly high level of deaths and of suffering as a result of aggressive behavior. Russians in Ukraine, go down the list. We do not match the gravity of the situation with the ability of the global community to respond. And that's the challenge. We take steps that we can. We take steps that we think will have some impact. But the fact is we can only do it in company with others and making sure that we're all working together in the same direction. And I think there's an incredible consensus in the world today on the Middle East that the fighting needs to stop, that there needs to be political moves to a two-state solution, and that's the steps that we have to take. The hostages have to be released. Those who are responsible for crimes against humanity, whoever commits them, wherever they're committed, have to be brought to justice. And that's the Canadian position.
Yesterday at the United Nations, Spain, Ireland, and Norway formally recognized Palestinian statehood. What would it take for Canada to do that?
I think the ministers made it very clear, and the Prime Minister too, that that is something that we are all working towards, but we want to do it in a way that's going to have the most beneficial impact on the peace process.
Why not now? Why not now with those other nations making that move?
Well, I mean, Canada's taken its own position, which I think is one that's being carefully taken, and that is to say, look, we are engaging with the Palestinian Authority, but right now the question is, well, what is the status exactly of Hamas in this conflict? We can't have a government or a state that's being partially run by terrorists. So we got to think this through carefully in terms of how we move forward. Not being critical of other governments, they're fully entitled to take their decisions. But I think we're all going in a similar direction when we say two states is where we need to end up, and we need to take the practical steps to get to two states that are going to ensure that Israel's security is guaranteed and that the Palestinian security is also guaranteed. And right now, neither side is feeling secure, but we have to move forward with discussions and with diplomacy, with the practical conversations that'll get us to a better place.
How do you think this ends? I mean, 8 months into this war, the stats are close to 36,000 people have died in Gaza, still at least 100 hostages being held. Israel's national security advisor said this morning that he expects fighting in Gaza to last through 2024 at least. How do you think this ends?
Well, it ends with a ceasefire. I mean, different individuals can have different views about how long this can go on. But the fact is that the war that is being fought in this way is not ultimately winnable. You can only kill an idea with a better idea. And that better idea is two states. That better idea is people living side by side. And it's not people thinking that solely a military solution to this will get us to a better place. Because the reality is the number of civilians that are being killed, the number of people who are dying and losing their lives and losing hope is simply too high. And that's not the direction that Canada thinks is the right one for both Israelis and for the Palestinian leadership to take. We need to find a way to get to a peaceful solution.
I have to let you go, but from where you sit at the center of international diplomacy in many ways, have you lost that hope?
No, never.
Never?
Can't afford to. Never give up.
Bob, good to talk to you as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Matt.
Bob Rae is Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. He was on St. John's, Antigua, where he's heading the Canadian delegation to the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States.